it's a good idea to know what's going on in the tune and know some things that you can do and what kinds of rhythms and accompaniment rhythms and bass lines and things will benefit the music and kind of help the timing and help the feel of the Cape Breton sound. So that's how we're going to start. Right away, what you can do is you can find on your, if you have the chords on your page, or if you want to just hear them, you can hear the chords of the first tune. There are really only 2 chords in the first half. There's just A and E. So at the very least, you can be just playing like that, or on the violin, of course, you know, you can play the low A down here. This, and then an E, and then a slightly different order on the second half. So 3 A's and an E, and then 2 A's, and then an E and an A. Now for Strathspey, the timing is going to be very steady on every single quarter note. So instead of, it's going to be, so every quarter note is going to have that timing. And for cellos, you can go, if you want. That kind of a thing. And for violins, you can go. Here we go. Questions? So as I said, the Strathspey to start with really needs that the foot going like this on every single beat. And that means that you have to reflect that in the way you're accompanying. So That's why it's not going to be so much just that kind of a thing. It's going to be a little bit more bass lines, like that kind of a thing. So at the beginning, you can start with just, and then you can add some bass lines. That already is more than maybe some people can manage. So to start with, you can always just go back to just one note repeated, or you can go to an octave alternating. So on the fiddle, for example, you can do this low A and then this A. Or if you want to get fancier, you can play both of those notes, the fifth, putting the first finger on both strings, D and G, and then you can play the top two strings. Those are the same notes, of course. So, and then you can have E, either just the E or with the A, the B on the A string as well, putting the first finger on both strings. And you can still just play the top two notes again. And then the E again, and back to the A. And you can get faster than that, of course, you can always go. That kind of a thing. And I'm just reflecting, basically, on the violin, what the piano would be doing. And it's kind of fun to sort of play around with that on the fiddle as well. So once again, the low note and an upper note, right? Or just all low notes. And you notice I'm taking downs all the time. And the reason, again, is for that very solid sense of every quarter note. The timing of it has to be like that. But as soon as I start playing bass lines, like, it's a stickier stroke, right? Like the Strathspey, the tune itself. Combination of percussive and melodic or stickier sounding with the bass runs versus the just the chording part of it. The first part again. And then the second half of the first part. And let's go ahead right to the second part before we put in other things. The second half of the tune. So, and it goes to a B and an E. Continues with 2 A's, 2 D's, and 2 D's, and back to A. Second part again. So we have A's, and then B, E. Now 2 each. A, D, E, and back to A. And so you can also rock the octaves, maybe with a fifth as well. And with other chords. If you want to, okay, we'll just start with that. So we'll do both halves like that. Again, I'll get this going. Let's see, maybe about there. Beginning now. Here we go. E. Second half. we can add some another element. This element is actually, in a way, one of the most important ones. And I don't know what to call it, maybe a lean in the bass, or I also think of it as a mirroring of the hands. So on the piano, so instead of just an octave like this, I'm also going to go an octave up here. I'm going to lean in from the middle, the thumbs, down to there. So I'm going to go like this. Okay, so what I did again is in the left hand from thumb to pinky octave, I'm leaning into the downbeat, into the main beat. You could do that with a fifth, or the fifth as well. Catching those two. And when I'm leaning in from thumb to pinky in the left hand, I'm also doing an arpeggio from thumb to pinky in the right hand. And again, the end of it, the pinky, is where I'm leaning into. So it goes, and that's an important, one of the most important things about the sound, I would say. And the offbeat is just a kind of a percussive short thing. And if you're very good on the left hand, you can even do a stride bass with that. I'm still working on that one. Anyway, so leaning in with the left hand, and you can do that with the right hand going upwards. Okay, so you're not going to do it all the time, but we can try that for the whole way through as an exercise. So we're starting off, here we go, ready, go, and one more, now go to E. Back to A, and back to E, and A. Again, 3 A's, and E, and E. In the violin, of course, you can try either, doing the that kind of a thing, or you can go and of course if you have a fun octave, that'll sound even better, It's just the same thing, only an octave lower. Alright, so the second part, just different chords, but we have the same idea. So we have A, and then then a B. If you catch the fifth, you got to watch out. It's an F sharp. And E. Now we have one each of A, D, and E before we go back to A. Here we go. And adding the right hand, the same thing. We'll just do the right hand maybe first. So E, A, and B minor, and E. Now one each of A, D, and E. A. All right, so what do we have together? We have 2 A's, B minor, oops, I forgot the F sharp, and E, one each of A, D, E, and A. So that's the whole second half that way. You wouldn't do that all the time. You wouldn't do these all the time, but you do these almost all the time. So you could do this, that lean in without this, do just an offbeat like. So that's a more of a basic, more of a complete basic sound. If you add that, a couple of these. And maybe a couple of runs like this. You're already pretty close to the sound that you want. So now you see how it's being put together. And let's talk about the runs next. The runs doesn't sound so good, but actually, we're all healthy, so it's all right. So what we're going to do, so let's talk about, let's make it, okay, so all I did is I add the C sharp in between. Instead of 3 A's, 1, 2, 3, and then the E, I'm going to go up to the C sharp and then down to the E, so. Okay, so that's just not changing too much yet, but now we can add a run in between. So we can go right, and even better than a scale, in this case, for some reason, chromatics sound really good in this music, and this is an example. So instead of up the scale, you actually go up to a B sharp to kind of lean into the C sharp. So instead of B, you're going to play a B sharp, also called a C natural, but in this case we'll call it B sharp. So, and then down through the F sharp. So we have. We'll try that again. You can continue the next part. Usually we had 2 A's and an E and an A. I'm just going to add a C sharp there. For the second phrase of the first half of the tune. That's what we're accompanying, and we can go. See that? And then you can add the run. Again, keep going through the D sharp again as a lean into the E. And keep going. So we have I'll take away the right hands for one time through. A, B sharp to lean into the C sharp, D sharp to lean into the E, and continuing through the G sharp. Once more. And of course, you don't have to do octaves, but it sounds better on the piano to do octaves. And that sounds pretty good on either the fiddle or the octave fiddle. So try that on the fiddle. So let's see, what do we have so far? We have some of these. We have a couple of runs. And the run at the end. I actually added a syncopation there that I didn't tell you about, so that's the next step. But before we get to the syncopation, we'll just do that a couple of times. So we'll do some of these, where you're mirroring the hands from thumb to pinky. With both hands, thumb, pinky, leaning into the beat. There's the beat. And with the arpeggio in the right hand, here we go. Next is the syncopation, and here's another important thing. If you want to sort of asterisk it in your head. So here, one thing was this lean in. And the other thing is really important is the syncopes. Think of them in triplets, just like the rhythms that I was saying last time. You're not even on the page. Though on the page it looks like dotted 8th note and 16th note is a 3-to-1 rhythm, but really it's 2 to 1. They're all triplets pretty much. So instead of not that, but and triplets like that. And the same thing with the piano accompaniment. So you're going along. So it's or so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, right? So that's what the triplets are like. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It sounds very kind of hokey dokey. But it's, if you put them in now and then, it's a good variety. So you can do one of these, and then maybe right away a syncop. All right, so we can try just simplifying it down a little bit, and just for now, just maybe do these lean-ins, and just do either offbeats like this, or maybe for that you need the offbeat in the left hand. So let's just try the whole first half like that. So we have, ready, go. I would say just play with it and just make a balance. So if you do a couple of offbeats, you might want on a syncopation or two. All right, here we go. And maybe add one of these too at the beginning. Okay, and then when you add the bass run to that, then it sounds a little bit like this. So you have here, ready, go. Yeah, okay, they're all by quarter note is the short answer. And here's how it sounds. You see, instead of, right? So you have the same number of notes, 1, 2, 3, 4. Before you go to the E, you just substitute all those A's for the run. In this case, we just keep going. Just making sure that you're going to go to the E at the right place. So if you have 2 beats before that, you can play those then. All I'm doing is I want to continue this very solid Strathspey timing that's so solidly and stickily on the quarter notes. Right, so basically I want that feeling. And whatever bass run, almost any bass run that fits those kind of pillars, those harmonic pillars, will be fine. The ones I chose are not the only examples that you could do. You can go. going through the scale, maybe occasionally adding a chromatic.
It sounds like when you add the thumb that you're almost syncopating those passing notes. So that they keep it on the quarter note beat.
Yeah, I think the syncopations you should leave to the right hand. The only syncopation in the left hand is going to be that lean in, right? But really, if you're thinking really, all the main left hand notes are going to be fully on the quarter notes for the Strathspey. Then I think you're going to, that will serve you well. So for example, if I'm going from there to an E, well, I can go through an F sharp, or I can go through a G sharp, or I can go through a D sharp. All possibilities. You can do all kinds of things, and in some cases, the more kind of harmonically leaning, the better, like the chromatics, like that. Or if I'm going from A to C sharp, to do through the B sharp. But really, to keep in mind always that left hand is your bass, is your rock. So that's got to be pretty solid. But at the same time, it's not going to be. It's also going to be moving by quarter notes as much as you can. That's why the bass runs in Strathspey work so well, rather than just instead of that. That's solid too. Oops, wrong note. But it doesn't add anything. Doesn't support that timing of it's a little bit too spaced out or something. You want something that's more kind of helping each other along in that way, in that supportive way. But always very fully on the quarter notes. Here it is, quarter. The syncopation.
On the last phrase, how do you prepare to be able to do that leaning in? Like, do you have to prepare with a certain rhythm before to be able to land the lean in?
This lead in?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. If you've done a syncopation at the end in your right hand, you're not going to be able to get there in time. So you just have to. You're just going along and seeing what fits with what you've just done. So if you can go maybe, that's a little bit also. There, that works very well. I think you have to strategize the couple of beats before. So you're just going to go. Maybe, and you'll have time to do that. If you do, that's going to be hard. You can sort of just do it, but unless it's a faster Strathspey, or especially if you do that one, there's no way you're going to get to there in front of the beat. So that's why the last part of the phrase, you just do it either a quick one. So it's bum, and then you have all that time to go back. Or you don't do anything. Maybe you just go, you're just going, or you can go, you can do it on the beat, or just nothing. Nothing at all is fine too. You can sprinkle those arpeggios in, those things, anywhere as long as there are not too many of them. And on the beginning of a phrase is a really good place for them. With the lean-ins, especially it feels nice to go to lean-ins after the leading tone. So if we're going E back to A, you see, so from the G sharp to the A, to lean in like this. it's hard to, the angle is a little hard to see, but there's the G sharp in my thumb, and I'm just sort of dropping down there to the A before the beat. And that's just something that I find feels good, and I hear that all the time in the sound, and it feels like it really is a basic part of the sound, really, in the piano. So you're going... kind of get used to that particular place between the leading tone, G sharp, and the A, leading in like that, that's what you're going to want to go for all the time, or a lot of the time. Yeah, so, right there. And here I'm leaning in with the left and also the right. So, I see Doug McPhee, you know, he just kind of gets as much as the deepness of the piano out of his left hand as possible. He just kind of sinks into it, and it kind of feels good, and it feels good in the timing as well. All right, so we'll try that formula bass run for the second half of the Strathspey. Scale degrees in a major scale: 1, 3, 4, sharp 4, 5, 7, 1. Just in bass notes, it's A, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, G sharp, A. Try it once without the run, and we just have A, then D, and then E, and then back to A. Just 1, 4, 5, 1, right? So the 1 you're splitting into those two notes. The 4 you're splitting D and D sharp, and then the last one 5 and the leading tone, and back to O. So put it together: A, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, G sharp, A. Here we go. Again. Now in octaves like this for the pianos. Again, octaves. To put in what I was talking about before, leaning in after the black keys, like this. Again. I realize that the angle isn't so good to see what my thumb is doing, but each time after the black key, like this C sharp to D, my thumb is going from C sharp, just dropping down to the D. That's what the lean is. If you add a right hand, just off beats, so it'd be like a... Notice that your D chord is going to come, if you do it offbeat, on the D sharp. Don't be shy, that's kind of fun. So we have A, now D sharp with a D chord. And now you can also add some syncopations, like... kind of a fun pattern.
Do you want to show us your favorite position for your right hand chords?
I like the octave in both hands, so you know you can do the arpeggio up, you know, in first inversion, but I like this like that root note at the top.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than going like, you can do that, but somehow it's okay. Nothing wrong with it, but I just like more, better. So you can either do 4 notes from octave to octave with 2 in the middle, right? 4 notes, or you can just do 3 notes, right? And you can still have that octave, that root note at the top if you have a C sharp. If you're starting on the 3rd. But it's nice. Other than that, you know, I would say it's nice to use different parts of the piano. So rather than, it's not like classical or Baroque music where you have to worry about voice leading so much. You can go A to B minor. That's okay. all those parallel fifths and octaves. That's not going to be. Although maybe it's nicer to go to kind of if you go A, and then you might want to add the top note on top. You know, the main thing that's going to sound better than even what I'm doing for sure is if you're using a variety of tessitura, so you're using more of the whole piano. That's especially true in the left hand, but I think also in the right hand. I don't do that so much in the right hand. I'm going to try to get better. So in other words, you might go that kind of a thing. So if you're going along, even in this run, you might want to go even just instead of up, you might go down and then down again, right? So what I did was there instead of right up off the arpeggio, there's an octave, right, from the low octave to this octave. I skipped down and I skipped in again, right? So it looks like, and that just again has more variety and more kind of I don't know, a deeper sound than, right? And then if you also do that in the right hand as well, you can go some basic patterns for the reel on the chords. So basically, once again, you're going to have rocking motion with the octaves. In this case, it's not going to be so much of the lean-ins. That's more for the Strathspeys and the marches, but rocking between the low note and the octave higher. So just with octaves, now with rocks, again with rocks, backbeats. And the other thing is you can sometimes do it more smooth like this. Sometimes you can also do, I would say in general, the smoother one should be dominant, should be more frequent, basically. Not too short. And certainly not short on the first one. Not like that at all. So it's always connected from the lower note to the upper note. Sometimes you can do long. Or different octaves. And probably some of you already figured out that you could add the formula bassline that we just did in the Strathspey, at the end of the Strathspey, to this one. So you can go. I wouldn't do it 4 times in a row, but you can do it certainly a few times. So. Maybe part of it, then all of it. The next thing is the syncopation. So there are in reels, there's basically 3 possibilities. well, maybe 4, depending on how you look. You can do these offbeats that we've been doing just on every quarter note, offbeat quarter notes. Right? Or you can do in some combination. So you take a triad, and then you pick 2 of them, let's say the outer 2 notes, and then the inner note. So it's... You can also pick the other 2 other notes, or I can do it in different. But for this one, a basic way to start is by picking the 5th and put the 3rd in the middle. So in A, that's A and E, and put the 3rd in the middle, C sharp. And that'll go on where the offbeats were. So if you do it with the pattern that we have, it's A, D, E, A. Final option is the syncopations. So you can do, right, those are just in between these quarter notes are 8th note syncopation possibilities. And if you just do all of them, which you wouldn't, but let's try, it would just be. And you can do different, what do you call it, inversions. Doesn't really matter. And again, it's nice to sort of use more of the keyboard. Kind of a thing. So you have, let's review. We have, or. Okay, and now how do you put them together? Those syncopations that I just did, you wouldn't often do both of them. You wouldn't go, sometimes you would, maybe, if you like it. But often you'd go, or just one or the other. Okay? So you can go, by the way, you can also do those things as well, if you want. Put those in there, so the leaning ones. So. Okay, then when you add the, you go. When you do a bass run, it's better to make the right hand more simple and also more syncopated, but only, like, use both of those words, simple and syncopated. Okay, I'll just make that a little bit slower. So. Don't really know what I'm going to do in advance in terms of where the syncopations are. You can try something like I'm just doing an offbeat, and then a syncopation. The same thing. I'm also putting in the leanings in after the chromatic, after the black notes. The second half, or F sharp minor, then D, B minor, to E, and the same thing, but now finishing up with E. So if you notice, that's going down a triad. So if you just fill them in, it's kind of nice, and you get, right? And then you can continue the bass line. Right, and that's basically, I'm just seeing what the chords are and filling in, you know, kind of seeing ahead. Oh, I'm going down to an F sharp down to D, so I'm just going to fill in. So we have. Or you can even just continue. And then the ending is a little different. If you just look at that ending, you just go after you get to the E, it's just D, E, E to A. So you think, well, you can't do much with that, right? But you'd be wrong, right? Because you can always, the Jaws routine, you know, it's actually a great one in this music, especially if you're in a modal setting like Huey Roy McKinnon. Modal going from A major down to G major, the basic chords, you know, right? You can go, you know, that's kind of a fun thing to do. You can put that in all over the place. But here we have that opportunity to do it in a major tune. So we have, so we can, right? You can chromatic up to the E, and then another one. And that allows us to continue the bass line right through the whole second half, which is kind of fun. Try it again. F sharp, down the scale, through the D, chromatic, up chromatic, down the scale, ending, up to the E, rock, so that's what I consider a fun bass line. So, all right, so here's the Strathspey. Okay. Here we go. we'll go into the reel after. One of the lovely things about this Strathspey is that it doesn't go as fast as some Strathspeys, and yet it has a lot of stuff in it, both melodic interest, but also stylistic kind of nuggets about this music. So it has beautiful places to put these warbles, like at the very, very beginning. These ideas of, it's not quite a mordent like this. It's something in between that and kind of a wild vibrato. And it's a little harder to do on the first finger because you don't have a finger underneath it, just an open string. And it's a spontaneous thing where you want it to sound, you don't want to know how it's going to come out. So it could come out just like this, almost like nothing, or it could come out a little wilder. Okay, and then another one there. Another one. Another one. So those two places in the first half are perfect places for warbles. Beginning. And on that C sharp there. Droning, of course, is quite important in this music. You can play it without droning. And some players tend to play more cleanly like that without so much droning, and other players put in drones everywhere. And so they're kind of different flavors, different families of fiddle styles, even within the Cape Breton tradition. The most interesting part for me about the second half is the flow of the notes. There's kind of both a triplet feeling that is in all over Strathspeys. Every Strathspey has some degree of triplet feeling in just the general 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Right? And yet, when you actually have triplets, they're not exactly triplets. And you have a lot of triplets in this tune, which gives you lots of practice. So in other words, you're going for triplets when they're not triplets, when they're only two notes instead of three. And when they're three notes, you're going for something that's not quite triplets. So you're not going to go, right? You're going to go, do you hear the difference? The second one, I'm playing within the three notes, but I'm not playing with the timing of the beats. The beats are staying absolutely steady, but instead of, I might go, or something like that. I'm not going to do the same thing over and over. I wouldn't go, I wouldn't go, I wouldn't go. Although that last one is a little bit closer to the truth. You could do a little bit of those fast threes and wait, if you do it very subtly. That works, if you just do it slightly. But you see, that's still, I think, very different from putting it into real triplets. That just kills the liveliness of it. So instead of, you can do faster and wait just a little bit. Or you can go quickly to the second one, maybe with a slur. Do you hear I'm going quickly to the second note of the triplet? Not very much. I'm doing this is exaggerated now. Right? But a little bit of that. It's very different from pure triplets. So not that, but. And that's how you get the tastiness in the triplet sections of the Strathspey. So the second half does have a triplet sound, a feeling. Now, not triplety here. This ornament that I sometimes call the delay ornament or a hammer-on. This ornament, it can be applied so much in this music. And the second part is no exception. So the hammer-on I'm talking about, there it is there. Okay, so it looks just like a little ornament in your music. It's just, now you just have an E ornament going to the A. So it looks like we're going to go, but you're not. The style, the flavor is lost. The timing is lost. The musical language is no longer clear if you do that kind of an ornament. So instead of that, before the beat, you're going to go right on the beat. And how long is a little bit up to you, but the main thing is the energy is in the little note. It's on the beat and it's in that little note. The right note, the melody note, in this case the A, comes afterwards and it's a little bit of an afterthought. Just try that with me. Put a drone note to that as well. For some reason, it just sounds better. You're always looking for places to unify the fourth finger and the open strings, to play them together, to add body and give you more possibilities for ornaments. When you have both the fourth finger and open string, then you can also, you have that little option for the little turn on with the first finger, or in this case, it's just a nice sound to go and do a little bit of a finger slide in between. A fingered slide is a new one I don't think I talked about before. So usually it's between between an interval of a third, like in this case, it's a fourth. And it's not going to be very audible, but just a little bit. So what am I talking about? A fingered slide. Well, a real slide would be taking the first finger and moving it all the way up, right, between the two notes. I'm not doing that. I'm doing that same kind of a sound, but with the fingers. And really, I'm not moving any finger like a slide. I'm just putting them down softly. But let's get back to the, what did I call it? The hammer-ons or delay ornaments. How many can we put in here? You could do there even. Here it is, one. And this is part of the tune, but it sounds like one. Here's another one. And another one. Here's another one. Here's another one. This is part of the tune, but it sounds like one again. Listen for all of them. all over the place. Let's go through that tune again twice through, and we'll go for that feeling of triplets on the places where you have only 2 notes, and then not triplets on the places where you have 3 notes. And we'll go for the we'll think about the places where you can put warbles and where you can put these hammer-ons, and also that finger slide in the second half. All right, good luck. Here we go. Here's your introduction. And play. Questions before we go to?
Yes, please. I have a question. Could I know every bowing which is not allowed for this music?
In the next 30 seconds?
No, I think you can change a lot, or for this kind of music, it's better to stay in the bowing clear and what's the rule about the bowing?
First of all, perhaps you're asking about just when to slur and when to play separate, or are you asking more about the style of connecting notes?
Yeah, the style, yeah. If you can, for example,
Do you know, I have spent the last 30 years figuring this out, and I still don't know all of the possibilities.
I will just an example.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So what you just did there was you slurred across a beat. You
Yeah.
Right. And I would say that you have to be careful of that. It's not that you can't do it or that it doesn't work in the style, but it has to be a different language than a more sung language like Irish music. I would say Irish style is more sung and the Cape Breton style is more spoken. And so in this case, if you just keep, this is a kind of a principle you can keep in mind no matter how you connect the notes. In speaking, you won't really know what I'm saying if I don't connect my syllables. But I'm not going to slur it all together because I don't know what I'm saying. You won't hear that either, right? So in speaking, you have this combination of connecting things very proactively and with purpose, the syllables, and enunciating. There is almost nothing that just goes like that in this language. It all has a life of its own. So if you go, you can't do, you have to go, you see the difference? Right? I'm not sure I would do that bowing, but you could, one could. But you wouldn't go, right? Because you're going, kind of, you lose the liveliness of some of those notes. So in that case, I would just say generally separate bows. When you connect them, it should have a reason. It should have a purpose. It should have more life, more variety, but not just variety for the sake of variety. Something about that part of that glob of notes that you want to put together into words has to say something, has to mean something. For the beginning, if I want to play more sweetly, I would probably do more slurs. If I want to do more of a digging out of the notes, I would do separate, right? I could slur and then separate, but that's a straight slur that I talked about, I think, in one of the last classes. There are these, you can review that, but there are four, here's maybe part of an answer to your question. There are four, what I call kind of bookmarks in how you connect notes in this style. There are, of course, infinite ways in between, but there's the ones that we're used to mostly is slurring and separate, like, or, right? But there are at least two big sections in between. There's what I call the loop bowing, where it's a slur with a surge, or on one note, like that. I'm not stopping the bow, I'm just resurging. And then there's the straight slur, which is almost the opposite. You keep the bow going, only you lift it in the middle, without stopping or slowing down anything, right? And so, if I slur them, I probably won't just slur them, right? But I'll do something with the rhythm and the way I'm connecting it in a little bit non-conventional way, classically speaking, than you would think. So, or there's all kinds of ways of connecting, and I can't show you all of them.
Of course, yeah.
Today. But this is where, if people do want to dive in a little bit deeper, I am available for one-on-one sessions as well. So there's slurs and there's sort of popped separates, and in between there's looped bowing and there's a straight slur. And the straight slur is the hardest one because it's something that you have to trust is going to happen. It's something that you can't, as soon as you think you've controlled it, then it's wrong. Because it should be an out of control bowing. Anyway, so those are the four: straight slur, a loop, and then the slur and the separate. One thing that's important about basic strokes for the reels, also Strathspey, but you hear it more in the reels, is something I call pops and sizzles, and you can put bubbles to that too. So it's going from one stroke to the next with a real pop that takes no time and no bow, or more precisely about 1 millimeter of bow. So not this, and not even this, but this, right? So it's just, and going the other way, and then after the pop, you sizzle, like this. And if you do it right, you get some bubbles. So we'll do that again. And you might try taking off some of your fingers on your bow hand if you're not getting it yet, because that might be kind of pasting your bow too much to the string. So just let it lightly be there. And find those bubbles. again, slightly out of control. Okay, and then when you can connect them, you can do it either with a little bow like this, or with a lot of bow like this. That's a little wilder, right? So it sounds like... Or the shorter bow way. And again, the longer bow. So in both cases, the same thing applies. These pops and sizzles. And you might notice also that I'm not playing like this. Right? That's going to take away the pops and sizzles. If you have the wrist going in front of the note like this, that motion there, that's going to take away the pops and sizzles. So you want to avoid those transitions for your fingers and wrist, and instead just push the bow in both directions. So once again, not this, but here we go. So in the second half, the rocking between the E and A, especially sticky, and should feel kind of good to go. Those pops onto the E string, I'm still catching some of the A string, so it's a little bit. You hear how sticky it is though? And even if I play with longer bows, it's still kind of that popped and sticky. Or so you can do the short bows or the long bows. The same idea applies. It just might sound more like Jerry Holland or Donald McClellan. One or the other.
Just wondering if you were thinking of the eighth notes as uneven.
No, I think that the answer is, am I thinking of them uneven? And the question, and the answer is no. I'm not thinking of them as even. Each of them, the downs and the ups, each are going to have their own life. The downs are going to have a certain flavor, and the ups are going to have a certain flavor when you're just going back and forth. The ups are going to have maybe more of a kick to them, more of what I might call a whip. Right? whipping into, and the downs might have less of that and something else, more of a foundational, because that's where your heel is coming down. There's that thing again about the heel toe, you know. The heel's on the main beats and the toe is on the off beats. And that's going to be going through your body, and it's going to make them sound unequal, even if I'm not thinking of them as unequal. So I might start off equal like this, and then I get this going through my body, and this equal becomes, which is unequal. So that's the short answer. Basically think equal. The up bows and down bows may have a different flavor, and once you get it going through your body, that should take care of the rest of it, almost the rest of it. And then the slightly additional part of it is that then you can put flavored rhythms in there as well, which are definitely unequal. Did you hear some of the Strathspey rhythms that I put in there? Not all, not so much, not that much, but I'm exaggerating to show you. So if I did it absolutely straight, but with every note getting life, I put it through my body, right? Already it's not equal anymore. And then I add a couple of Strathspey rhythms. Then you've got the sound, the rhythm part of the sound, I think. So, sorry it's a kind of a complicated answer, but the short answer is I'm not thinking them uneven, except for the ones that I'm putting in a Strathspey rhythm for. It's just going through my body. The transition from the Strathspey-to-reel to the reel is, of course, a really important part of it, a really important moment that I didn't really talk about this time, but I think you'll find it on the first session if you review that video. Just a quick reminder though about it in 10 seconds is that you want to make it very gradual. So you're finishing up, and then you just start where you left off with the Strathspey and getting it through your body, through the heel toe. It's going to change from the Strathspey heel to just get it going, pretty moderate speed. Here we go. Twice through each. Here's your introduction. And play. first tune is going to be Trip to Mabba Ridge, and for the piano players, you can do the same things that you were doing before for the Strathspey. The leaning in and the both directions. And that should work pretty well for the march as well. And then we're going to go to this tune, Lord Alexander Gordon Strathspey, and then Mabou Coal Mines, Huey Rory McKinnon's, which is one of those Mixolydian modal tunes, A's and G's. So that's the one where you can go with the chromatics down to the G's. Going then to Miss Lyle's in Dorian. So I'll go to, and then Lady Erskine Reel will be the first reel. And then that's also in Dorian, and then Sandy McIntyre's Trip to Boston in A major, and then the very end we'll do Miss Robertson Reel that we were just doing. Okay, so let me get going here. Trip to Mabba Ridge. person.